It is a special day. By the title of the flyer, you know what's going on. If you're not on X, that is, and Twitter and all the other social media, you would have missed the news that one of the great culture warriors of this country made a big decision last March. She made a decision to come home to what we all here, if you're Catholic, believe is the one true faith, the Catholic faith, the faith of the martyrs. And when we saw that event here at Catholics for Catholics, my name is John, by the way, in case you don't know me. I help with Catholics for Catholics. We saw this news and we're like, doggone. I hope someone's going to throw a party for her. Because she deserves it. And furthermore, if I was in heaven, I know what would be happening right now. Because when the sheep comes home, last time I read the Bible, Jesus threw a party of the prodigal son. They killed the fattened calf. They celebrated. Oh, celebrated. How do Catholics celebrate in the first place? Celebratio, the Mass, the celebration of the Mass. First and foremost, someone's come home. Well, let's gather around, first and foremost, what's most special to us. It is the Eucharist. She was able to be in the upper room and receive our Lord. So we're like, okay, well, let's organize a Mass. And then we'll have a talk afterwards. Here's what she has to say, because you do recall, if you were on social media, that there was just this post that said, I became Catholic, with a picture of her and the priest. But there wasn't the confessions of St. Augustine to help understand how she came to that moment. So we're all dying to hear. You here in this room, we sold out, waiting list, are unique, and yes, you'll be able to listen to this afterwards, are going to get to hear what thousands of people across this country have been wanting to hear. What made Candace come home? Now, you might say, come on, John, some people, when anybody comes home to the Catholic faith, you got to throw a party. 100% agreed. Absolutely. Every single person who joined the faith at Easter, RCIA, came into the faith. It's a celebration, because every soul is infinitely valuable before our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That being said, Catholics for Catholics, our turf is public square. We want to back those people who are in the public square and fighting for God, family, country, and Candace does just that. So when we saw the attacks that she was going through for saying things like, Jesus Christ is King, we're like, as a family, as a spiritual family, which we are, all the more reason we need to back her. That's what we do at Catholics for Catholics. Get behind these people in a myriad of different ways. You saw our last event in March, what we did. We're backing that person as well. So tonight is about that. It's about hearing the story, taking things that can inspire us, to help us. And there's people here, I know, that aren't Catholic yet, and we welcome you. We're excited that you're here. And we're going to hear her story. Candace Owens is a mother of 3, and that's the first and foremost thing. Everyone always goes in the bios, and they put that at the end. But she's a mom of 3 kids. She's got a fantastic husband. Talk about a marriage working right, a sacramental marriage working right. George, strong Catholic, came to the faith when he was 19, helped lead his wife to discover the greatest gift that he could have possibly given her, faith. It's a marriage working right, a family working right. Mother of 3, her influence is off the charts. She's off on her own, blazing her trail, speaking up for things that aren't always popular. But I want you to hear from her herself. So without further ado, I please invite you to welcome Candace Owens.
this. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you. Truly an honor to be here. This is my first Catholic event, so I will never forget this. I'm genuinely so honored to be here. And yeah, in case you have not heard the news, I became a Catholic. It was really interesting to hear, for those of you that were able to make it to the Mass, Father Lankett talk about the converts, like the excitement and the fervor of the converts, because that is so real. And I think you had mentioned that they don't allow converts to go into seminary for 2 years. Yeah, well, what they do allow the converts to do is to go on Catholic pilgrimage and sign up instantly for the most aggressively Catholic experience that you could possibly happen. And I promise you, I did not know what I had signed up for. It happened very casually. If I had time to think about it, maybe I would have said no. My husband kind of dropped it on me a week before. And do you want to do a 65-mile Catholic pilgrimage? Do you want to walk 65 miles? And, you know, I just had that Catholic excitement. Yes, let's do it. Why not? How bad could it be? How hard could it be? The next thing I knew, we were on a plane to France. So how many of you guys have ever done a Catholic pilgrimage, just by a show of hands? Okay. Wow, actually, quite a few of you. Yeah, any of you guys actually done the Charter Catholic pilgrimage in France? Yep, just me, just the converse. Yes, one other person who likely converted and got right on a plane. So I did this. I got on a plane, and I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of left expectations in Nashville, and I was looking forward to the experience. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what happens, I will kind of walk you through it very quickly. So you arrive, most people arrive the week before because they don't want to be jet lagged before they walk 65 miles. Apparently, I'm a glutton for punishment. And my husband and I got there the night before, and we had dinner with a priest, Father Widows, and we were just asking him. He's like, ask whatever questions you want. You know, you carry, whatever you carry on you is what you have for the walk. So whatever you can fit into your backpack is what you have. And he said, you know, you're going to be really confused when you wake up in the morning, and everything's going to seem really crazy, but you're going to get through it. You know, at certain times, you know, the Lord will be with you. At other times, the devil will tempt you, but you're going to get through it. He was so positive. And I remember actually leading up to it the night before, I spoke to my husband, and I walk a lot. I do. I walk every day. I consider it a part of my meditation. I get my thoughts together. And my concern that I had lodged with him, because they divide you into little tribes. So there's, like, you know, the American group, the Belgian group, for all over the world. Everyone has their tribe. They pick their saints. They hoist it onto the flag. You're chanting Latin prayers. And I was concerned. I said, well, do we have to stay with our group the entire time? You know, what if I want to walk ahead and someone's kind of keeping us behind? And, you know, he didn't really have an answer for it because he had never done this either. But that was my number one concern. So you wake up the next morning, 5:30 a.m. You are going to be up and on your feet, walking from basically 5:30 a.m. until 8:30 p.m. the first day. And you say that and you don't really understand. I mean, forget walking. Try standing just for, you know, from 5:30 until 8:30 p.m. It's completely insane. And but the morning starts, and it's so amazing because you're in Paris and you're at Saint-Sulpice Cathedral. And if you've never been to a mass with 20,000 people, it is the most incredible thing in the entire world, right? So you are at this mass and you're looking around, and he's right. You're like a baby. You have no idea what's going around. People are running all over. There are these massive trucks, because once you reach your first destination, the first 28 miles, there's going to be a camp, and you're allowed to throw one piece of luggage into these massive mover trucks that are going to meet you there while they're building the camp. And it's totally crazy, but it is organized chaos. And this mass it's so beautiful. I mean, just everybody coming from all over the world, and you link up with your group. And I would say right after the mass finished, you get in line and you start walking. Now, every crew has their own thing. We were in the Australian-American mixed tribe. Everybody has a priest. I think there's about 20 of us in our group. And I just was not expecting. I don't think you guys know what a French Boy Scout is? Like, essentially, when you think of the American Boy Scouts, it's gone very downhill. These French Boy Scouts are Spartans, okay? So I immediately realized in the first 7 miles how wrong I was about the pace, because I was basically running the entire time. And they are hardcore. I mean, they are marching everyone the entire time for 3 days. Salve Regina Mars. And by the way, starting this, I knew no Latin prayers, okay? After 3 days, I think I speak fluent Latin. I would take questions tonight in Latin. It was unbelievable. They just go and they don't stop. They don't stop. The Latin prayers the entire time. You pray the rosary. You can go up, forward. There are priests. They will take your confession. And after the first 7 miles, I was feeling good. I was like, okay, this is a lot of walking, but I'm doing good. We're outside of the Paris city. Every 7 miles is a break, and they give you some water. And there's just people that hand you water and kind of clap and say, good job, very quickly. There are porta potties if you need them, and you keep it moving. And I was like, okay, I've got this. 14 miles in, a little different, right? It's lunchtime now. And lunch is a strong word. It's not actually lunch. It is boxes of bread that they throw to you. They just throw to you. Like literally, they pass the boxes, and these Boy Scouts, they're incredible. I mean, I just looked at them and I was like, who are these people? And they're just like, it's a military operation. Everybody's catching bread. I'm so hot. I am so sweaty. I've just walked 14 miles. Aside from eating the bread and whatever you have in your backpack, and these French guys, they're pulling out like sticks of ham, sausage, cheese, like the French do, right? I mean, they've got like baguettes, and you're just in the middle of a field, by the way. You're on the ground, you're sitting down, and they're all laughing. And I'm pretty tired, but I'm not going to be the first person to say that in the group. And there weren't too many females in the group. There were only about 5 of us, and I have no idea what's going on. And this lunch break, and I personally couldn't eat. They're passing around. I've never seen this in America, but there's something called pork butter. Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is butter with pork mixed into it, and I'm physically like, I can't even look at that after 14 miles walking in the heat. I look over to my husband sympathetically. He is diving into it. I mean, he is double dipping, asking the French to pass him the baguettes. And I'm just going, okay, we're having a very different experience here. And that's fine. That is fine. We are doing this together. Onward we go. About the hour break ends. Onward we march. We're back to speaking fluent Latin, marching. I am running. And I will tell you, right about, I would say that the 14th mile, you start to go, okay. You're very proud of yourself. You're okay, that's a lot of miles, and you keep going, and now you're getting close to mile 18, and you go, okay, I've done 18 miles today. My Apple Watch has died, right? Like, it is like, I've never done so many steps in my entire life. And you're proud of yourself, and at the same time, you realize, I have 10 miles left. Like, how am I possibly going to do this? And of course, at that moment, it starts to rain. And you start to see people falling apart now, right? So now you're starting to see people, the paramedics on the side, there are people on stretchers, there are people having seizures, and in the mid, I'm not kidding, this is not an exaggeration. They've got women under blankets, and the French Boy Scouts march on. They march on. I'm so impressed with these human beings, They're running like a military operation, getting the people out of there who are clearly not going to make it. I am looking up like, am I going to make this? And the rain, just so you're clear, you're walking through the woods, right? So it's all mud. So that once you get to the pouring rain and the mud, now you've slowed down. Everyone's slipping, everyone's falling. There were strangely, I promise you, some people who did this barefoot. I don't know how they did that. They were totally fine marching barefoot through this entire experience. There are other people whose shoes have fallen apart, and people who have extra pairs of shoes, and they're giving them the shoes on the side. I mean, it's just an incredible operation to see this. And then you get through the woods, and I would say about mile 22, I kind of just fell apart. I was feeling pain in places that I wasn't even sure about. Like, I was like, can you sprain your hair? Like, my hair My hair physically hurts. I'm looking at my husband. I am not okay. I can't take another step. We have walked 23 miles. I am speaking Latin. Like I can't do this. And I was having these thoughts, and and this is what Father Witos was warning me about. The devil is just like, should I just go back to being a Protestant? Like Catholics are crazy. They're crazy. No. I put that thought away. And I look over my husband because I'm having like end of life thoughts, right? So I'm thinking, I promise you, I'm thinking about my kids, I'm like, are our affairs in order? I look up at my husband. I don't know what he's thinking, but I can see that he is also deep in thought. And I like turn to him and I say, like, I just wonder what the kids have had for dinner, like what they're doing right now. What are you thinking about? And he's like, could you imagine doing this in full armor in the medieval times? Men, okay? Just, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe he said this. So I say to him at this point, I'm like, okay, honey, I am literally not okay. There's one more pit stop. I tell him I can't stop. If I stop, I'm done. Like I have to just keep going. I'm literally asking him to hold my hand. I'm holding his hand like an 8-year-old child. I'm like, if you let go of this hand, it is over. I am giving up. I don't know how we could possibly go forward. And they say, I promise you, there's 3.5 miles left is what they tell us. And they say, and the last 3.5 miles are all uphill. Yeah. Like the bottom of my soles hurt. My hair is sprained. My hair needs a cast. And so I look over and I'm just like, we're gonna have to take this slowly. And I look over at Father Witos and I'm like, I think I'm gonna die. And I kid you not, Father Witos says to me, in the cheeriest Australian accent you could ever hear, that, yeah, someone died last year on the hill. And sure enough, my friends, there was a cross on the side of the road. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't make this up. So I don't even remember. I think I had an out-of-body experience. I hardly remember the last 3.5 miles walking slowly with my husband, holding his hand like a child. And then you see it in the distance. You see it, the camp. You see a flag. It's like a finish line flag. And just the elation that goes through your body. You're like, oh my goodness, I did this. Like I actually did this. The mental, the physical. I cannot believe I actually did this. And then you fast forward, and when you lay down, I mean, you can't even explain what your body feels like when you lay down, and you're just like, I am gonna sleep so fast, and I'm going to sleep so hard. And right before I shut my eyes, I don't know if it was the Lord, I don't know if it was devil, I don't know if it was my husband, but somebody said, you gotta do this all again tomorrow. This is only day one. I think really that is just such an analogy for my entire life and my entire ascension in politics when I really think about it. I am someone who was really raised those formative years by my grandfather. And I think about those early years when nothing makes sense, so to speak, like when you're just first at the event and you don't know what's going on and you don't know why any of it is significant or why anything is important. And my grandfather, who was not a Catholic, but he was an incredibly faithful man. And the Bible ruled my grandfather's life. I mean, he largely abstained from the world. And every morning, my grandfather would sit us down when we were young and we would have to read the Bible every morning. He would make us big Southern breakfasts, and it was quiz time. He'd go around and he would ask us questions. It was a Bible study every morning about the Bible. Whoever got the right answers would get the biggest mug of the day. We were always, me and my 3 siblings, competing to get the granddad mug, because that meant that you were in first place. And it was something that, again, just didn't mean much to me at the time. It really was about the mug, It really, I wanted to get the answers right so that I could defeat my brothers and my sisters. It's always been competitive. And, now I look back on that fondly. My grandfather passed about 3 years ago, and I think about, the Bible and that early lesson of if you raise up a child in the way that they should be, in the end, they will come back. And that has so much been my experience, having been so embarrassed entering the world world and having the most secular public education, and suddenly wanting nothing to do with faith, right? Because how uncool. If you want to be a cool person in school, in public school, you got to get secular, and you got to get secular fast, right? And you don't want to talk about granddad and grandma. You don't want them picking you up. You don't want to talk about granddad's Bible lessons. You just want to completely abstain from all things faith related. And you make fun of people, right? You make fun of the Bible Belt Christians, and you make fun of those people who believe, oh my God, can you believe these people? They're talking to Jesus Christ. And you see that being reflected culturally on your television screens. And then I would say what really happened was those that incursion into politics happened quite accidentally. And it felt a lot like those first 7 miles, right? I was saying things that I knew to be true. I was landing on truths. It seemed absurd to me that as a Black person, I had these factory settings. I had to be a Democrat, and I had to be a victim, and I had to be this. And I just said, like, what if I don't want to be that? And it created an uproar. Oh my goodness, what do you mean? This is the prototype that we have created of what a Black person is supposed to be, and you are supposed to be that, and you are not being that, and therefore you are going to be attacked for it. And I could deal with that. I was okay with that. I was having fun, making fun of the ridiculous ideas of Black Lives Matter at the time, which made me enemy number one to the media, of course, because they were so obsessed with that narrative. Our lives were ruled by BLM. It's weird to think back to 2020. It really is weird to think about the riots and everything that happened. And I wanted to be a person that was standing up for truth against lies that I felt were harming the Black community. And then you sort of go onward, and I think that right about figurative lunchtime, when bread was being passed out, I was still feeling good. I was like, you know what? I figured out even more truths. Yes, I love free markets. I love conservatism. I love capitalism. I love this country. I think this country is amazing. I believe in being upward, economically upward, that you can finish someplace in life that you didn't start. That is the story of my grandfather, who began his life on a sharecropping farm and then finished his life having owned that sharecropping farm that he grew up in. Like, what an amazing place America is, right? I can do this. This is amazing. I love this so much. And yet, as you get a little further in that journey, you start to realize some things are coming together. And I'm going, oh, wait a minute, there's something darker happening here. I think that was like mile 18, and now I'm getting married, and I'm marrying a Catholic who has converted after studying theology, and I'm interested in what is driving him, what drove him into the Catholic faith, and I'm starting to realize that, well, what's actually going on in this world when we talk about any topic. Communism, you can talk about COVIDism, because that became a cult, right? That became an ism. You can talk about racism, you can talk about all of these things, and it's hard not to realize what these things have in common. It's hard not to realize that element of atheism, right? And this made me want God again. It made me want to go back to breakfast with my grandfather. And when you're in politics, by the way, that's actually not as bad as it sounds. I know that it seems like the war, the left hates God and all of this stuff. But for the most part, a lot of the people that are taking those positions are just unwise. Like, they really are not, the sharpest people. They don't have all of this hate in their heart. I know we kind of like to think of it that way, us versus them, but they're misguided, and they're intentionally misguided in the same way that I was intentionally misguided while I was in the public school system. And so it was easy for me to look around me in the Christian political space and to see so many evangelicals with platforms, people that had become my friends, and people that I was traveling around the world with, people that I'm still so grateful for, right? I'm still so grateful for those experiences because they do recognize that it is the absence of God that leads to all of these things. I mean, going back to COVID, just as one example, I mean, if that wasn't the government attempting to become the gods of people's lives, I mean, there's no such thing as an atheist, right? Show me a man who says he's an atheist, and I'll show you what his faith is. Probably government. You're worshiping something. Environmentalism, I remember this famous atheist. His name is Sam Harris. I have no idea why people thought he was just the bee's knees. I guess he went to Stanford, and had a couple of degrees, and then he became like the resident atheist and had this huge podcast, and people would debate him on atheism and why he was an atheist. And then COVID hit. And Sam Harris basically lived under a rock, refused to come out of his house, became a paranoid psychopath. And I went, "Oh, buddy, you're not an atheist." And he called me and he said, "Your tweets are dangerous. You're telling people to go see their family members." Okay. Think about you really once a week, you should always in your head just remember the time when we were yelling at each other for breathing, because that happened here. People were seeing people breathe and were yelling. That is mystifying, terrifying, strange, and really does show you, wow, what can become so dominant in your life, right? You have no faith. You must believe that this is it. So you have to worship government. Government says, walk on those strange little pads in the grocery store, and next thing you know, everyone's doing this. And God forbid you forgot the rice, and you got to go backwards, because then someone's going to yell at you for breathing and backpedaling at the same time. It was amazing. I was just looking around going, what is going on? And it was so obvious to me that this was ultimately about faith. It was really about the government testing to see, like, yeah, have we done it? Have we become the gods in everyone's lives? But I felt in my soul, it really for me began, first with just the curiosity of the Catholic faith, seeing what it had done in my husband's life, and really just being interested, right? Overwhelmed, but interested in why this had done so much good in my husband's life. What is it? He goes to church every day. He goes to mass every day, right? He does. He goes to confession every Saturday. And just in watching that, to see somebody have that sort of a commitment, to see everything in their life become better, I'm just a naturally nosy person, I think, is where it really became from. Where are you going? What is going on? I'm going to see Father B. I'm going to see, what are the fathers saying? I want to go. I'm very excitable. And then there were just some things that were happening politically, and it really caused me to challenge a lot of the evangelicals that I was friends with about what is dispensationalism. What is it ultimately that you're dispensing, right? It's starting to feel like a political party, and not that you have these truths that are incontrovertible. My husband used to say to me, and I never understood it, and now I get it so much, that to become a student of history is to become a Catholic. I never knew what he meant until I started getting interested in what was motivating people, what was driving people, why I felt that there were these hang-ups with Protestants about certain topics. And then I would want to know more about those topics. And I started researching those topics. And every time I would research those topics, I would find myself discovering things that I thought, wow, that's weird. Seems like this was an intentional time in history that was an attack on the Catholic faith, specifically the Catholic faith. Forget Christians, that's a broader stroke, but the Catholic faith, right? And I describe that moment in realizing that as sort of getting to the end of the first day, right? The understanding, okay, like I am seeing a big picture, I am seeing a finish line, and then recognizing that despite everything that I had built, despite the comfort of where I was at, despite everything that I had accomplished, despite the money that I was making, and let me tell you, that part, that is the devil, let me tell you, right? Because now you know the truth, but what are you gonna do with it? You're starting to notice some things, you're starting to really wonder about history, you're starting to realize that really this has always been an attack on the Catholic faith. You're starting to re-examine those history books that you learned and question why it is that you've always had a weird thing about Catholics. Like why we just instantly say like, oh, well, Catholics, you don't want to be a Catholic. Who is putting that in my mind? Where is this brainwash coming from? as you look deeper into history and you start examining things like the amount of cathedrals, for example, Chartres being one of them, that one which was saved in a miracle, the story of Chartres when we saw as we were approaching it on that third day, is that some American sergeant was given bad intelligence, told to fire upon the church and to bomb the church, and something in his soul told him that those orders weren't right. And so he went across enemy lines. They said, nope, do it. There are Nazis in the cathedral. And something told him that intelligence didn't make sense. Why do we keep continuing to get intelligence that there's Nazis in every cathedral? And he said, I volunteer myself. I'm going to go across lines. I'm going to go across and see if there's Nazis in the cathedral. And he took someone with him and he went across the lines, and there weren't any. And so we rang the cathedral bells to signal not to fire. And so that church, that cathedral still stands because of the bravery of an American soldier. And so when I got to this moment of really pursuing true history, not the stuff that you learn in public school, not the us versus them, not the left versus right, not the up versus down, not the black versus white, not the tall versus short, not the men versus women, not the every-ism reverse game that we've been playing for years, but, God, goodness versus evil, right? When I started looking through that lens and studying history, I came up and thought to myself, it has forever been a holy war that is being waged against goodness. But you can imagine that feeling, right? You've done so much. You've survived all the attacks. If you want to talk about the rain, the journalists that have attacked me over the years for everything. And by the grace of God, me and my husband have survived everything, And you hear that voice in your head that just says like, yeah, you could just say nothing. You could really just kind of keep on going and saying the thing about the left versus the right, and you could live a really nice life doing that. You don't need to shake things up, right? You don't need to press forward on this narrative. You don't need to talk about the Catholic history. You don't need to talk about any of this stuff. You can stay away from the topic of faith altogether, raise your beautiful children, you have a husband who loves you, and you can just donate money. Donate money to the Catholic Church, right? A lot of them got bombed. Why don't you rebuild the Catholic Church? We had these conversations, at me and my husband last year, where it didn't sit right with us. It didn't sit right with us. And it was something that I had to pray on, because suddenly I understood that my entire career, which I felt like I was going into this nice, easy spot in, was going to be upended, because everything else that we were talking about was a nonsense, and this is the big one, right? This is the big one. And I understood what this meant. I understood the attacks that I was going to endure for my faith. If I was correct about this conspiracy in the books, every time you learn about history, the Catholics are always awful. Catholics are terrible. Catholics do everything wrong. If I was going to dig in and I was going to start presenting this information in a different way, I knew that we were going to be attacked like we had never been attacked. And I think at this moment, actually, and this I credit, and I've never felt this as a Christian, but I was just so grateful for that, right? I was grateful for that, because persecution is the beginning of the Christian faith, right? And so then suddenly I am being maimed, I'm being caricatured, and things are being said about me that have never been said. In politics for 8 years, and I've endured tons of attacks, and I have never endured more attacks than when I tweeted last November that Christ is King. Never in my life have seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. It was very much like those old black and white films where, you're the vampire and just like one, I was just, what is happening, guys? I literally just tweeted Christ is king, and every person trying to intellectualize and to explain, no, this really is actually anti-Semitism. Like, if you really look in between the lines and like what's actually happening here in this tweet when she says that Christ is king. No, this is the devil. No, she cannot. I mean, sometimes it can, when you say that Christ is king, it could mean this. And did you see this random guy on the internet that Candace doesn't know? Well, he's a white supremacist, and he also says Christ is king, which means therefore Candace Owens is definitely white supremacist if she continues to say Christ is king. It was psychotic. If I had known how easy it would be to upset these demons, I would have said it every day. I would have tweeted it once a day. Only a demon reacts like that to truth. Only a demon could react like that to something that is so simplistic, directed at nobody. The lies, the amount of lies told about something that was so simple and so true, and the absolute elation that I felt. When Father Widows, when we were walking, he was speaking. I can't tell you what mile it was, but he was talking about poverty, and he was talking about the simplicity of it, the burden being lifted off of your shoulders. And when I no longer had this panic about money, right? Because I had decided that it didn't mean anything if it came at the expense of truth. I had never felt more free and more grateful. Never been more grateful in my entire life. So I know that we are going to get to some questions, and I want to say this in finality. One of the most beautiful things about coming into the Catholic Church is that I didn't come here to be a celebrity. No, you don't. If you want to be a celebrity, don't become a Catholic, right? Go start a fashion line or something, right? Here are some shoes I'm selling. Buy them. Here's my link. But for the first time, my celebrity made sense to me because it was a gift. I'm not a celebrity. The only celebrity, as you were saying, there is only one celebrity. There is only one that we should be celebrating ever. That's it. I finally got to be reduced, right? Reduced and really understand what a gift was bestowed upon me. This platform was given to me because the platform's not mine. It isn't mine. And I didn't understand it. I used to say, I don't know why this was gifted to me. I don't understand it. Now I get it, right? It was given to me because it is not mine. It is not mine. It is little more than a megaphone for me to do the real work, the honest work. And I'm not going to get it right all the time. I'm still learning. There is so much to learn. I am overwhelmed. I am humble. I am grateful to feel so small in this role. And I just want to thank you guys for being with me on this journey. And I will do my best not to let you down. And if I do, please pray for me and forgive me. Thank you guys so much.
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. This is just the beginning. What a joy it is to welcome our new sister in Christ, Candace Owens, to the One Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church founded by Christ the King. Candace has followed the road less traveled, just like her husband, and they discover that all roads lead to Rome. Why? Because the truth is irresistible and the truth is colorblind. I'm just imagining, as Candace was being received into the church, God the Father was looking down on her and he said, "This is my beloved daughter with whom I am well pleased." Candace has accomplished so many things in her young life. I can just imagine what she's going to do now with the graces of the sacraments, the mantle of Our Lady protecting her. But all that said, Candace's most important vocation, which she knows that will be duly known in eternity, is that of being a godly mother and a godly wife to her husband and to her children. As I said, all roads lead to Rome. The church is here to help you, Candace. We're here to help you. We're here to pray with you and to pray for you. Welcome home, Candace. Welcome home. We've kept the porch lights on for 2,000 years. We've been waiting for you.
Candace, what can I say? May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Welcome home to the Catholic Church.
Candace Owens, look at you. Congratulations. Doug Billings here on the set of my show, The Right Side. Congratulations on coming to the Catholic faith, the true church founded by Jesus, instituted by the apostles. We are with you. We stand together for God, for the Republic. Believe it. Cheers.
Candace, congratulations from all of us here at Priests for Life. One of the images of the church I find most helpful is the golden coin held by the dirty hand. We embrace that treasure of the faith, knowing that we're all sinners. Sometimes we hurt and disappoint each other, but we are going to love and encourage you and work together for this nation and this world. God bless you.
Hi, Candace. This is Michael Hitchborn with the Lepanto Institute, and I just want to welcome you home to the Catholic Church. I am elated to have another sister in Christ, and I would also like to let you know that as you probably already have realized, coming into the Catholic Church is now going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, struggles that you will now face for the rest of your life. Because entering the church means going to war with the world, and you've already been at war with the world, but there's an even bigger war going on within the church herself. And as we continue to fight for the salvation of our own souls and the souls of our family members and the souls of those around us, I do know that you will be continuing that fight and entering into the battle with even greater fervor. And so I am very happy to have another person, another sister in Christ, a combatant in arms, bringing the Holy Rosary to the fight and fighting for the salvation of souls and the heart of the church. God bless you, and thank you so much. Hope to see you soon.
Hello, Candace, and greetings from Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you for being such an inspiration to the Catholic community. You once said that faith is the guiding light in times of darkness. Thank you for being such an inspiration here to the Catholic community. Thanks, Candace.
Hey Candace, this is Father Calloway. I'm so happy that you're a Catholic now. I'm a convert too, so I know the joy, sister. Welcome home, and God bless you always.
On behalf of over 1 billion people, welcome Candace to the Catholic Church. We are so happy that you are part of our family. You have a great Catholic husband with George, a beautiful Catholic family, and now you're part of our enormous family in the kingdom of heaven. And we look forward to seeing what the Holy Ghost is going to do through you. It's going to be magnificent. God bless and welcome home.
So, Candace. First question. Listening to your testimony, let me go back. You said I could ask anything. You said shortly before this speech that you never get nervous before talks, and yet you were nervous now. Why?
Because this, I think, it just matters more. And I think in many ways, it's just the humility of realizing how little I know, right? I mean, there is so much to learn. I'm so overwhelmed with how little I know. You know, I feel almost like my entire life, my public school life has just been a lie, I guess is one way of saying it. And I'm overwhelmed by how much I have to learn. But I will also say the other side of that is I've never been more excited. I mean, we went to London for a month in April, and I didn't want to leave because every day I was doing an hour and a half at the Brompton Oratory with Father Julian or with Father Rupert. And it was just, it was like a personal renaissance. Like it was just like I was learning information for the first time. And that's exciting. That's really exciting. So it's nerve-wracking also because I'm not a person who's converted and gets to learn and make mistakes without them being publicized, right? I'll say something, and if I get it wrong, they'd be like, heretic, right? Heretic, she's a heretic. And I'm like so conscious of that. And I don't want to get it wrong. And so I feel that pressure in many ways. I don't want to let Catholics get down, I guess is the best way to say it.
So in your testimony, it was interesting how it seemed like you almost came closer to the church because you saw all the attacks going against it. Why would something so bad, be attacked so viciously, and that led to like you taking a second look. Is that correct? I'm gonna go deeper into that. Like,
there were a lot of things happening at once. I think with me, it's always a lot of things that happen at once. I mean, just even marrying George, right? That's like the first big thing. And his story and his testimony is fascinating. And I think for me, yes, it was recognizing, I mean, really could just start with like one thing. You could pick anything, right? We could pick, like I was talking about the Charter Cathedral being bombed. Okay, I mean, almost being bombed. That actually factually happened. You know, we live in this society where we're constantly talking about mining past pain. Everyone's a victim, right? Women went through this until the 1920s, and Black people went through this and slavery, and everybody gets a trophy for their past pain. Now try talking about things the Catholics have lived through. It's not the same. And so it was sort of me recognizing that and then seeing how whenever Catholics would try to speak out about anything historically, completely removed from politics, just this factually happened, the attacks were really quite strange. And then I just sort of got interested, as I was talking about, in some of my evangelical friends' perspectives on certain political issues. So that was sort of unrelated. And I got interested in like the Schofield Bible. Like, why does their Bible say this and this Bible say that? And unfortunately, if you start getting interested, you kind of start realizing, okay, this has always been about dividing Christians. Dividing Christians from what, right? The one holy apostolic church. And what better playground to do that than in America, where we've already been trained to believe my truth, my truth, my truth, my perspective, and not the truth. And so for me, America was intentionally infiltrated as a playground for Protestantism.
absolutely. So you saw that, and that just, you knew it was like, okay, it made you take a deeper look into it, and it combined with your studied history, put that together and arrived to that. Hardest hurdle for you?
That's a great question. What has been the hardest hurdle? It's such a weird thing because you could say 1,000 things that are public about that, but I've just been so grateful. It's weird. It's totally weird. I'm at this very aggressive time in my life. Things are insane. It's like a mainstream global news story when I leave my job, getting attacked from former colleagues and things that are being said that are not untrue. And you would say, yeah, most people would say, yeah, that's been really hard, but it hasn't. I look over my husband the whole time. I'm just like, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be amazing. This is actually going to be amazing because what we're doing now actually matters. So I really do think that the harder things are the little things, and it was just accepting that I knew nothing. When I've gone back to being basically a middle schooler, there's this wonderful pamphlet that my husband gave me. I guess they used to print it in the 1950s. It's a comic book for Catholics about the Latin Mass. I think it's literally for 11-year-olds. It's amazing. It's great. I'm like, we got to get this reprinted. Who makes it? Where did you get it from, sweetie?
Know the Mass.
Know the Mass. It's wonderful. It's from the 1950s. Yeah, so that's where I'm starting, right? So I'm sitting in the car outside of Mass, and and my husband hands me this book for an 11-year-old, and I'm like, this is amazing. I love this. So I have it in my backpack. I revisit it, and it's a wonderful place to start. But that hasn't been too much of a challenge because there have been people there to guide me, and people are really understanding, and so it's been wonderful.
So okay, that's how you arrived. You're reading, you're studying. Now, Eucharist. How did you approach that? What was that like? Someone asked me from the crowd. Ask her what it was like the first time to receive
First Communion.
Yeah.
I had, and I don't want to veer towards anything heretical, but I will say that getting baptized as an adult was the most amazing, beautiful. I remember looking at the end of this in this traditional Latin baptism, and it was so special. Genuinely, it will register as one of the most beautiful days of my life. It was incredible. And at the end of it, I remember I saying, I just wish everyone could experience it this way. Of course, I understand, like babies, you get them baptized, my children baptized, but I think it's just so different when you're an adult and your senses are so alive and you really understand what this meaning is. And it's not, happening because, oh, my mom's a Catholic or my dad's a Catholic. And it's just something that I would absolutely never forget. And I did First Communion right away. And it really was just a glorious day. It could not have been more perfect. It was just me, my husband, and Father Rupert and Father Julian. And it was after, these weeks of study and asking questions like I was a child and playing, the advocate with the Father and being like, well, what about this? What, just kind of trying to fish out and just really seeing the beauty and being able to approach, because I still feel like I'm approaching it, the fullness of faith and realizing, gosh, what was I doing before? Why was I doing it? Revisiting, where did I learn these things about Catholics? When was I brainwashed against Catholics? That's what's happening. I mean, I think that that's something that Catholics need to be aware of. You're up against the public school system. The public school system loves Protestantism. The public school system loves the division of the church. So I'm answering your question in a lot of ways, but it was a wonderful experience. It was beautiful. And it was something that I will just never forget as long as I live.
So, absolutely. It's almost like receiving the Eucharist, it's like profound yet so simple. And that's what's so unique. You just, the priest will tell us that you just sit in front of the presence of our Lord. You may not feel anything, but it just kind of, it gradually over time, it's like there's somebody there. You feel the warmth of his heart. And I look at him, he looks at me, the famous story from John Vianney, right? The church in 2024. It's very interesting what's going on. You're a warrior. You like saying things just the way they are. And that often doesn't always happen in the church. And sometimes there's even the reverse of confusing positions. What's going on in the church today, have
I'm up at all, for sure. Yeah. I was sitting across from Father Julian. I'm like, tell me one reason I shouldn't be Russian Orthodox, It's like saying whatever in this room, right? And I presented that to him. I was like, well, they would say that this Pope is an example, of all of the arguments regarding the schism, which I don't know why, but the British priests say schism. So it make me feel uneducated when I say schism. Schism, the great schism. And he had an answer for that. And he said, actually, this is what really shows you the strength of the church. Like the strength of it, actually, is that even when you are going through tests, and he has the perspective, and I also hold that perspective too, that, there is a reverence there. We need to approach those issues like family members. And so I'm not into the theater of like, this Pope this or this Pope that. I think it's a trying time, but I think that the church withstands the test of time. I mean, that's the point, right?
Absolutely. Blessed Mother, Mary. How's that going?
Of course, that's the first instant hang up for a Protestant, right? It's like we all say the exact same things. The Pope, Mary. Why are you worshiping Mary? Why this is completely crazy to be worshiping Mary? And then that was actually something that I got around quite easily. I read the first book that I read, and I think that was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. George gave me Bishop Barron's. Actually, no, the first book I read was Scott Hahn. Yes. But I say the Protestant. I read it and I was like, okay, like, I don't know. He has a lot of books. This one, he was like, it was actually, maybe it was his wife. The book was actually more about his wife coming to faith, and it wasn't substantive enough. I think it was a quick read. I don't think it was like, if that's your first entry, it wasn't a compelling enough reason for me. And I was like, okay, but George was kind of like putting books and like, oh, read this one. And I was like, I'm going to read this book. Here's another book. And I said to him, yeah, it was fine. And then I read Bishop Barron's Journey to the Heart of the Faith, and that was different. And honestly, I was seized in the first 15 pages where he started talking about, and this again kind of has the symmetry with politics, where he was talking about the root of the word, like diavolo, right? Like the devil wants to divide, and he was getting into what that actually means. Like division is an evil. Right. And I know that from politics, right? I know that it's all about dividing the family, dividing the sexes. It's this constant game of division. And when something is not whole, it is not true. And so that kind of instantly made me go, okay. And it was just really beautiful. You know, it was the book itself and the way that he was writing about it was very impassioned. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I very, very easily got around the Mary thing because it's just a lie. I mean, people are telling you that Catholics are worshiping Mary as God, and that's just actually a lie that has been repeated so often that people just believe it to be true. They don't understand the veneration of her or what is the reasons behind the veneration of Mary, and so that wasn't a difficult hang up for me.
Favorite saint? Have you had a saint that's really drawn your heart?
Promise. Did George put you up to this question?
Nope.
So it's so weird because Saint Joan. Yeah. There's been this just weird thing about the things in my life that weirdly happen in threes. And, Father Julian was like, you start thinking about what saint, like what name, what your confirmation name is going to be. And we started talking about saints and all of this stuff. And I was like, gosh, there's so many saints. How do you just like pick a saint? And then obviously our first Catholic experience was in Chartres. So we were in France. And then the first Catholic event I got invited to was St. Joan, and somebody had written to me and said something about St. Joan, and I was like, hey, this name just keeps coming up. And then I looked online, and strangely enough, the day that she marched, right, it was my birthday. It was April 29th. And I just thought, this is so strange. I just thought, this is just, everything is pointing to Joan. So it just, France, Joan. Right now, Joan.
Okay, that's insane. You all got to hear the backstory.
It was very strange. The whole thing was very strange.
George, you didn't tip me off about this?
Actually, I learned on the pilgrimage, Catholics, we do not believe in coincidences. We believe in providence.
Absolutely. So the backstory of the audience, you're kind of getting ahead of herself in the flow of the evening. But when we're choosing the day to have this event, I don't know if you know this, Candace, we're looking at the calendar. I got the Bernadette's liturgical calendar. Like, great, what's coming up? Candace, we want to have her here. I was in touch with your team and looking at dates. Well, son of a gun. May 30th, why not? Feast of Joan of Arc. Okay, great. Where do we have it at? Oh, I know, Joan of Arc Parish. Okay, that's surreal. Yeah. And then you hear that.
It was providential.
Providential?
Yeah, it really was providential. It's such a strange set of circumstances.
But it's true to St. Joan, though, we know her life, okay? And this is so symbolic of Catholics, the way it works. We don't really choose saints, they choose you, okay? Same thing happened with the Joan. She got tapped by, first St. Michael, and then it was St. Michael appears to her and says, hey, by the way, you're going to have two girl saints appear to you, St. Catherine and St. Margaret. So they came to her. Maybe St. Joan's your girl, but it's, in any case, from a human point of view, we see so much of her example in you, and we're going to get that in a second. But, okay, so that's your favorite saint. My mom's sitting in the front row, so she asked me to ask you this question. She's like, ask Candace, if she were to ride in the battle like St. Joan had a flag with the wording on it, what would be your mantra, your word, your battle cry?
Wow, Mom, you asked that question? What's going on? Gosh, I don't know. That's a great question. I know. I think it has to be, right?
Christ is King.
It absolutely has to be Christ is King. Because then I don't even have to fight. They're just going to, So weird. Yeah, that one's great because the demons they just perish instantly. They cannot handle that. So
That's it. Christ is King, Christus is Rex. All right, final question. What can we do to support you? We want to. That's what we're here for. What do you need from us?
I genuinely say this to people. The prayers are keeping me safe, and keep my family in your prayers. I just know that I wouldn't be here in this circumstance if it wasn't for the prayers. And, I didn't have the ability to speak out a lot when the whole Christ is King thing was going on. I really don't have the ability to speak out much now, but to look online and to see, Andrew did that video attacking me, and the full weight of the church came upon him. And it was, and to look at that, I had tears in my eyes just being, I couldn't say anything. And we were getting texts from Austria, Germany. They're like, I don't know what's going on in America, but Christ is King. People were just, it trended for 4 days. It trended and people were outraged. And I was so proud. And I say this truly that's another thing that has been so compelling, that when it comes down to moments like that, you do see that it is the Catholics that do not give 1 inch. And then I will say the Orthodox as well, but they do not give 1 inch when it comes to the faith. And then you get to some different divisions of Protestantism. They're like, well, if it upsets somebody, maybe we shouldn't say Christ is King. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Okay, so we shouldn't say only women can give birth because it upsets somebody's feelings and this person doesn't want you to say it. If you do not stand on truth, you don't stand on anything. You stand on nothing. And so I just want people to know that I saw the defenses of me. I saw the videos. I saw the tweets. And if you knew how much it got me through such a time of transition, so to speak, I just am so and will forever be indebted and grateful to you guys.
So this is the blessing of people under the title of Our Lady, Help of Christians. So all of us, as we priest, are giving the blessing. You should be praying for Candace, that she will continue to fight for the truth, and that she will continue to lead people to the way, the truth, and life. Of course, that's Jesus Christ. So we pray for her, and we priests will be praying for that intention, that she will continue to lead people to truth, and that she will go even closer and closer to Jesus herself. Agitorium nostrum in nomine Domini. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Santa Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostre. Amen.
Sub tuum praesidium confugimus, Sancta Dei, genitrix nostras, de precationes despicias in necessitatibus nostris, sera pellicris cunctis libera nos semper virgo gloriosa benedicta. Maria, auxilium Christi honorum, ora pro nobis. Domine exaudi rationem meam. Clama meus a te veniar. Dominus vobiscum.
Spiritu tuo.
Oremus. Omnipotens sempiterne Deus, qui gloriosa Virgis Materis Maria corpus et animam redinium Filii Tui habitaculum effici mereretur, Spiritus Sancto cooperante paparasti, da ut cuius cum ratione letemur eus per intercessione et statibus malis, et a morte perpetua liberemur per eadem Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen. Benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti, descendat super te et manet semper. Amen. And then, of course, a little holy water, Candace. I'll give you my blessing, asking God's blessing and His favor and everything good for you and for your families. Benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, descendat super vos et manet semper. Amen. God bless you.